Well, good afternoon. A very pleasant greeting live from the campus of CSU Bakersfield. We're here for our Wednesday webinar, our monthly webinar, hosted by CSU Bakersfield Small Business Development Center, and also sponsored in part by the Eastern Sierra Connect Regional Broadband Consortium. So today, we're going to talk about some of the business growth strategies that existing businesses might encounter as they look to grow. My name is Kelly Bearden, and I am actually the director of the CSU Small Business Development Center, and I will be your co-presenter today, but actually the moderator, as today we have Angel Cottrell with us. Angel, as you might know, is a semi-regular to our Wednesday webinar series, and Angel's background is very diverse and very solid in this particular area. She is one of our outstanding CSU Bakersfield SBDC consultants. She has also worked with small business development centers and entrepreneurial efforts throughout her past 15 years. And currently, she's employed by CSU Bakersfield as the outreach coordinator for the School of Business and Public Administration here on campus. So it's great to have Angel with us. One thing we'll do is kind of look at the interaction on how we're going to actually perform this today. This is our 28th webinar, going back to January of 2012. So welcome. If you have any questions, please share them. Ask a question by hitting the question or the chat at the bottom right side of your dashboard on your screen. If you have any issues, try to resolve your issues currently, or email us or text us using the chat, and we'll try to see what we can do. We'll ask all questions at the end of the presentation, so please get the questions into us. And with no further ado, let's bring in Angel Cottrell. Angel.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're doing well today. So we have a few goals of our webinar today. We're going to explore a few different types of growth strategies. We want to talk about how and what to plan and when to execute those plans. New age marketing, which is going to be very interesting. How do you develop your customers and your employees? And let's go over a few other tips too, which will include some tips on financial sustainability, which, as we all know, you're in business to make money. So what are the tips that we're going to begin to go over? We want to discuss how you're going to find your niche and how you're going to work with your niche. Again, when do you plan? When do you execute? And how do you execute? What do you need to know about social media? Who are the people that you need to make happy? And how do you ensure that you have financial sustainability? So for the next 50 minutes, these will be our topics. So how do you find your niche? And how do you develop your value proposition? That VP does not stand for vice president. It stands for value proposition. You begin by investing time in understanding your niche. Do we all know what your niche is? It's the position that your business takes in the marketplace. It's a very specific position that is based on demographics, customer characteristics, and projecting the size of your market. So what we have to do here today is we've got a few questions coming up right away. Yes, the webinar has started, and yes, it is being recorded. So for the person that is not hearing us, you've got something going on with your speakers, because as far as we know, everybody else is hearing us loud and clear right now, okay? You want to develop a product that has a genuine value proposition that your niche will get excited about. Glad to hear that you're on board. So let's get back into this. Your market niche, the position that your business takes in the marketplace. You want to develop a product that has a genuine value proposition that your niche gets excited about. Why do you want your niche to get excited about this? Because these are the customers that are most likely going to purchase your goods or services. These are the customers that you are actually going to spend money to attain and retain. So who are you willing to spend money on to attain or retain? And if you begin by defining your niche as anyone who, you're still too broad at that point. That's why I always like to use this slide when we're talking about the niche, okay? Because when you take a look at this, oh, my PowerPoint is working without me today. When you take a look at the whole pie, this is to represent an entire market, okay? So when you think about the industry that you are in and the product or service that your industry fits, you have a huge market that's out there, okay? And quite frankly, a majority of that marketplace is probably never going to be your customer. You're not necessarily going to fit their bill. Then you've got an additional percentage of people that may or may not fit the bill. And then you've got this smaller percentage, but these are the ones that make the most difference in your business because they are the most likely to spend the most money with you, which is the reason why you would be willing to spend money and your time to get to know what these folks actually want. What can you put out there in the marketplace that they are willing to do this exchange with you? Now, a couple of webinars back, we really started to get into this. We were talking about this from the lean canvas point of view. And we're going to get into that a little bit more, again, a little later in this broadcast today. But this talks about and goes strongly into the whole piece of customer development. And that is part of what you are doing with your niche. You're actually developing these folks that are going to broadcast to others what a great product or service that you have, how this has benefited them, and they're going to continue to come back and send others your way. And what does that ultimately lead to? A successful business and financial sustainability for you. So what the heck is a value proposition? This is your bundle of products and services that you use to create value to specific segments. Your value proposition for a specific segment can actually be a little bit larger than your niche. This is how you figure out what are the different types of customer segments that you can go after, okay? Particularly when you are in either beginning stages of the business, you want this niche very closely defined and you want your value proposition very, very closely defined because at this point, your access to resources most likely are limited, okay? And so you want to always be getting the most bang for your buck. So that means that you want to focus on these things that you think are going to garner the most customers for you, build that niche, and around that niche and discussing with them and talking with them and working with them is how you build and boost your value proposition. The value proposition is the reason why customers continue to choose you over another competitor that may have a product or a service that's similar to yours. But it comes into that strengthening of the relationship that you have with your niche that strengthens the value proposition, which then in turn gets them talking about what you have to offer. It gets them out there promoting what you have to offer and actually purchasing what you have to offer. The value proposition helps to solve the problem. And when we take a look at the lean canvas again, we'll talk about those pieces to this of solving those issues that are out there. Now, for some, your value proposition could be something that's so brand new, it's so innovative that nobody has even really heard of this before, and that's what gets them excited. For others, it may be something that's very similar to what others offer. And again, that is where the niche comes into play because the relationship that you have with that particular customer segment is what's going to push you along further. So now we want to also discuss, why do you plan to grow? One way that you plan to grow, the first thing that we're going to talk about is a business plan, okay? And there's two main reasons that you write a business plan. You either are an established business that you need to obtain capital, all right? And if you are deciding to go to any traditional type of lending, meaning a bank, you're going to have a complete business plan written. Microlenders also require this. Crowdfunding is a different story, and it's a different webinar. You also write a business plan, even if you're not ready to obtain capital, because you want to develop and document the precise strategies and activities to commence, grow, sustain, or exit a business venture. So it becomes a working document in your business that you utilize as a way to plan and as a way to evaluate some of the ideas that you will have sparking in your brain. Kelly?
Yeah, and the business plan is essential for many people that are growing. And The one thing that we see is that a lot of customers or a lot of clients will come to the SBDC and not know how to clearly write the plan. And really, it depends on your audience on who you're writing it for. Growing businesses are using it to obtain capital, but oftentimes they're using it for a number of other reasons. Some of them are looking to hire employees and are using the business plan as a justification to go out and actually bring in employees and to sell the business that and the opportunity that they have at their business to this particular prospective employee. You might use it also to align strategic partnerships. Growing businesses oftentimes partner and collaborate with other businesses. So, whereas oftentimes we'll see businesses that come in and they want to write it for a reason to obtain capital, there's many other reasons to have an updated business plan that's growing and continuing to work for your particular business.
And again, it provides you an opportunity to start to really evaluate if a growth strategy has an opportunity to pay off in the ways that you anticipate that it would. Okay, so it really gives you a chance to start to put on paper and evaluate the idea that you have, and then lay out what the marketing plan looks at, lay out what it's going to cost to actually implement this growth strategy, so that you can determine, is the strategy actually going to be viable? Is it going to be feasible? And is it going to add to the business? Is it going to help you grow? Or is it something that's going to create a level of risk that could potentially cause the business to suffer, which is not what you want to do with a growth strategy. So it just provides you a good way to systematically evaluate a growth strategy across all different aspects of the business. All right?
Now, being a financial person, a lot of people come in and they ask, what's the most important part of a business plan? From my standpoint, I believe that the market analysis section is. And it's valuable because market analysis, what you're doing is you're defining who your customers are going to be. You're also defining who your competition is. And you are also showing your competitive advantages and disadvantages. And why is this important? Because this sets up the whole part of marketing, of advertising, of social media networks, and all this other stuff puts it into motion. But typically, a lot of people will kind of not really spend a lot of time on those particular aspects. You really need to really look at who your particular market is and who your market analysis is. And we do it a couple of different ways here at the SBDC. One way is we really looked at your customers, but not only from the standpoint of who is your customer, but who is your ideal customer. A lot of people will open up their business and grow, but what will happen is they will accept the customers that are out there that come to them. They don't specifically target and go after another demographic, perhaps, or another set of customers that might make their business grow faster and grow more profitably. Competition is another aspect that we really like to look at on market analysis, and that's because what you find is that a lot of people take a very narrow focus on competition. For example, if I have let's say I have a yogurt shop. Anytime one of my customers can decide to go next door and get a Slurpee at the 7-Eleven, they can go down the road and get a soft drink at the grocery store, or they can go and get a Frosty at Wendy's. There's a lot of different variables and a lot of different options that they have. So when you view your competition, use a much broader focus and realize that customers have a chance to go in different places. And then also what you'll do is you'll factor in what your competitive advantages and disadvantages are. And I know Angel does this all the time, where she'll be able to recognize with a client that they're not always objective when they're looking at their disadvantages on how they might compete with some of the competition that they have.
Very, very true, Kelly. I wanted to also go back to the part where you were talking about finding the customer base, because so many businesses now operate in the internet as being a huge part of their marketplace. And this can really adjust who your competitors are, okay? Because not everybody anymore is the storefront that what I'm trying to say is, just because you can't see them does not mean that they do not exist. And if you are planning on doing business utilizing the internet, even if that is a strong strategy for your marketing, which we will get to in just a second when we get to the social media tips, you have to be thinking about that in terms of your competitive advantage and disadvantages, as well as where your competition lies within the internet itself. Okay. So just because you can't see them does not mean that they are not out there.
And I still need to stress the importance of financial information and understanding financial information that we're going to hit on a little bit later. But it's vitally important as well. But really understanding the market and the marketing aspect and use that as a means of growing your business. Too many people come to us and want to do a business plan to try to get financing to obtain that capital. But there's a whole other reason to have a plan, and that is to use it as a roadmap to grow your particular business.
Okay. Doesn't look like we've got, okay.
Our other, if you come into our Small Business Development Center, we generally have two ways of trying to help businesses grow. And one of them is the business plan, but the other is the business model generation that we had a webinar on just a little bit back on the lean biz startup concepts. And Angel, take us through this, please.
All right, Kelly. Well, this is a very interesting concept. For those of you that were not on the webinar back in March, this is actually being taught in Stanford's entrepreneurship centers and various other centers around in universities, starting in some areas of entrepreneurship centers and universities, okay? And if you want to learn a little bit more about this, you can go to steveblank.com. But what this does is it starts to get the business owner to map out, these are 9 different areas of business that you want to be thinking about. And really what this does is help you define and develop your customers and to develop your niche. And it also helps you determine if the business idea that you have, whether this is a new growth strategy that you have for an existing business or this is a startup, is it viable? Does this have a chance of making it? Okay. Everybody's heard the statistics about startup businesses, and 80% of them are not in business after 5 years and all this other stuff. You can go out there and go to incon.com. You can find all kinds of statistics about this. All right. This has come out of people doing analysis on what the difference is between a company that's trying to start or a company that is open and is attempting to add product or service into their business. Okay. So you are actually adding a division, adding a department within your own business and determining what is the actual viability of this and what are the chances of your customers actually purchasing this product or service from you. So what's the first thing that you're going to think about? The top problem.
Well, and another thing is, since this is such a great tool and we really like using it at the SBDC, one of the reasons is it can be done rather quickly. The Lean Canvas was kind of devised as a forerunner for a lot of people that don't have a business plan. And the reason is that you can do the canvas and do the initial part of the canvas in 30 or 45 minutes. Now, the important thing is then to go out and test what you're assuming. And that's one of the problems that we find with the business plan is that people that are startup businesses that do them, and this is used more for startups than for existing businesses, but it can be used, as Angel mentioned, if you're adding a division, a new product line, etc., or if you're looking to grow your business. This is an excellent strategy. And the reason is because you can do it in 30 or 45 minutes, and what happens is then you can go out and test what you think is true and find out if it's true. And you test it through a process of customer development, talking to your customers, coming back and seeing if your model that you're moving forward is the model that is going to be most profitable and best serve you moving down the road.
So what do you do first? You identify the problem. What are the top 3 problems that you think exist? Okay. Each business that is opened comes from a place, well, hopefully it comes from a place of passion of someone that sees, hey, I can improve on this particular product or service. Here's what I have to offer that's different. Here's the problem that I see that's still occurring, that these other products or these other services are not fulfilling. Okay. So you start thinking, well, I know what this problem is. And you start to align what you think solutions are. And this would be potentially your top 3 features of your service or your product line that you have. What makes your solution unique? What is the unique value proposition? How are you doing it differently? Okay, you think that you've got something different, but how are you doing this differently? And then how do you actually communicate this to potential customers in a single, clear, compelling message? All right. This unique value proposition, of course, aligns with your niche, okay, and you determining what that niche is. Unfair advantage. What's the advantage that you have in this process that other people don't have? Okay, so this could be, if it's a service business, it could be a particular skill set that you bring. If it's a product, perhaps you're an engineer that you have figured out a solution. Again, so what is this that you bring to the table that someone else has not been able to do as well? Who are your customer segments? Okay, there can be different segments of customers that you are going after, and each of those segments may have its own unique marketing plan. You may market to different types of customers in a different way. So going after an individual consumer would be different if you're going after a business to business customer, okay? This product or service may actually solve a problem for each one, but I'm going to approach a business in a different way than I'm going to approach an individual. So this has you start to align or draft out what are the different customer segments that could be served by this. What are the channels? How do you get to those customers? What are the paths to get to them? Okay, so we've just talked about the fact that there's going to be unique customer segments. You should have a unique way of how you're actually going to approach them. Key metrics. What are the key activities that you are going to measure? These are key resources you have. These are key people that you have. These are all the things that work together to develop what you will be taking, that you develop so that you will end up being able to have a return investment on this as well. Okay. But there's going to be certain things that you have that, again, make you unique in this situation. What's your cost structure? This is where it's very unique and different for startup businesses versus ongoing businesses, okay? And for myself, in studying and learning about some of this stuff, this is what I found so unique because I've noticed this problem working with business owners for so long. And it was nice to see that there was some information put on this. But the bottom line is that if you are a startup business, you do not have the same financial metrics as a startup. And again, we'll get to the financial sustainability part in a few minutes. But you will not have a balance sheet at that point. You do not have a profit and loss statement or an income statement at that point, okay? Because you haven't generated all the sales to even generate those financial statements. And so there's no possible way for you to evaluate that. Now, you can do cash flow projections, and we can do startup cost projections. But what's another metric that you want to know? You want to actually know what it costs you to acquire a customer. How much does it cost you to actually get that customer in? How much is it going to cost you to actually keep that customer? Okay. In some ways, you take a look at this also. What is the value of the cost structure to you? Are you putting out a lot of quantity and the quality of it is not as important? Okay, or is this something that's very unique and it's much more of a luxury line where the quality is of utmost importance to you? So these are other decisions that you make, and you can make them by going out and actually speaking with the customers about it. What are your revenue streams in the models? Okay, what is the lifetime value of this? What are the margins that you potentially can get? So again, this goes very fast. In 45 minutes, you've got Post-it notes up on the wall for every single one of these 9 different sectors. And I think we've got a picture. There we go.
And there it is right there. There's a perfect example of an SBDC consultant. Well, maybe not, but that's a good way of doing it, is to actually put it up and actually, since it's going to change, you don't want to write on it in pen or ink. But now really it gets to the point where we've gone through the business plan. We've gone through the business model canvas. Now you need to execute. And now you've come up with some good tools, and it's the execution of the plan and the model that's important.
Alrighty. So marketing. We've alluded to the fact that this is extremely important. Collateral materials. These are all the things that you put together in terms of your logo and your print materials and that you utilize to actually promote your business. Other online tools that you have, web exposure, social media, review sites like Yelp, and video sites like YouTube. So how are you exposed to the web? You have a search engine optimized website. You begin to use social media. LinkedIn is a professional social media networking site. Facebook, I think most of you are familiar with that. If you're not, you can send us a question. Twitter, Instagram has gotten extremely popular with folks in terms of how they communicate. I find it interesting that the ways that we are communicating online with one another seem to get more and more simple. So we went from Facebook of typing lots of things to Twitter of 140 characters to Instagram, I'm just going to send you a picture, and that's the full message. So I find it fascinating in terms of how we are changing the way we interact with one another. You can go web ads, okay? Google ads are extremely popular and have been very successful for folks. You can choose to blog. This is you writing on a consistent basis. This is 2 to 3 times a week normally for a consistent blogger about topics that are important to you. We've talked a little bit about YouTube and how you can have your own channel on YouTube and you can put up video and you can utilize merchant circles and the online reviews of Yelp. And actually in early January, we did a webinar on Yelp and how business owners can use it, what's the best ways to reply to it, because this is how customers are making actual decisions in the marketplace, is based on what other folks are saying about places, not something that you want to ignore. So there's a lot of buzz about social media, and it is a great tool, but it's important that you do know how to use it. You do want to think about your target market or your niche, again, those folks that you're going after, and where are they on the web? Okay? If you're going to utilize the web to advertise to them, to market to them, then you need to know where they are. Okay? So that will help you to determine which type of social media platform would be the best for you to utilize to communicate effectively with those potential customers. Remember that creating a real following starts from using the right platform first. So that is just reiterating what I just said. How do you grow by using social media? You share and you add relevant content. This is what positions you as the expert. This can be done by commenting on other people's sites that you see. This can be done by your blog. So there's many different ways that you can do this. You also invite other people to participate. You read and engage in their stuff, and you invite others to read and engage with the things that you are doing. You want to structure time, okay? One of the things that people have that happens is that their time gets sucked into this. So we really do suggest that you create some structured time for yourself so that you can determine what is the content you're putting up, how often are you putting this content up, and then there's some consistency with what you are doing. Just one sec. Okay.
So that brings me to my favorite quote, is that social media and customer service. There's a lot of things, a lot of aspects to customer service and social media that you need to be aware of. One of the things I even like is since we talked about a business plan, is developing a social media component of that business plan. And in that, you really need to monitor what's being said about your particular company. I remember hearing recently that a lot of people have people around the clock, a lot of bigger companies that just manage the social media component and what's being said. So keep that in mind also, that's important components as well. And I love this quote because it's old school. Is you give somebody good customer service, they'll tell a friend. And if not, they'll tell 5. And today, with all the review sites, if we're using TripAdvisor or we're using Yelp or whatever, you give bad service, they have the capability of actually telling thousands of people.
So we did have another question that it said, we know folks are out there on the web, but how do we find out where our customers are? That's a great question. And it goes back to your market research. And it goes back to defining your niche. And it goes back to what you think you know about your customers. So you need to get back into your product or your service that you are determining that you're going to put out into the marketplace. Okay? And you start to think about who those people might be. You also think about who you want them to be. All right? So you can actually determine and define demographics of the type of customer that you want. For example, if you are going to open, and I'm going to go with more of a boutique line of something, okay? I'm going toward the end of luxury because this makes it easier. Quickly give you an example. Maybe your customers are within a certain age range. Maybe they make a certain amount of money so that they even can think about affording what it is that you put out into the marketplace. Okay. So that's not an example that's going to work for every single one of you. What I'm trying to do is give you an example of how you can begin to think that way in terms of determining what are the demographics that that niche would have. But that goes completely back to market research. And if you want to learn more about how to do that, at the end, we'll have SBDC resources up, and you can actually get an appointment with a consultant that can sit down with you and help you to figure this out. Kelly?
Now, my 2 cents to the $10,000 question would be, it comes back to a couple of things we kind of hit on earlier, and that is knowing who your demographics are, knowing who your customer is, and doing the customer development. It's a lot of legwork, and it's a lot of hard work to do that. But customer development is basically talking to your prospective customer and sitting down with them and interviewing them and talking to them about 5 or 10 questions that you might have, or 20 questions, and getting in depth on what they really want. Really knowing what your customer wants is kind of the background of building products and providing services that people want. And if people want them, then they will pay for them.
Thank you, Kelly. Keep the questions coming, folks, if you still have them. Okay, so how do you measure the ROI of your marketing? Because I'm sure you guys have all heard, if you're not measuring your marketing, you're not marketing, okay? So the fastest way to spend money in marketing and not know where it went is not to measure your things. So what you want to do is track the effectiveness of your marketing strategy. Always ask your customers how they heard about you, unless they come by and visit you every single day. Monitor the hits that you've got to your website. You can very easily set up an account through Google Analytics, and they do the work for you. You just have to get in the back door and actually look at the information that they have put together for you. Develop a customer database to analyze, and you can use that for marketing, all right? Use codes and offers in advertising campaigns. This is another way to actually incentivize people to come. They can put the code in, and then you know exactly that that worked. Send out follow-up emails and surveys. Today, at the end of this webinar, there will be a survey for you to fill out. Do we read the results? Absolutely. Do we take it into consideration for future webinars? Absolutely. Monitor your online reviews. This is becoming more and more important every single day. Websites like Yelp, TripAdvisor, all these other type of review websites, this is how customers are making actual buying decisions, are based on what perfect strangers are writing about their own experience. Now, that could be another interesting way to go out and figure out also where customers are. You could go in and look at Yelp reviews of your competitors and see what are people most happy with and where is the gap within that service or within that product that's out in the marketplace now. And that could be the gap that you fill.
Happy customers. Happy customers. Isn't that it's a great saying. Okay, so one thing about happy customers is that, and we've had a couple of questions on customers, is that a lot of studies have come out and they've always said that it is much easier to retain your existing customers and cheaper than finding new ones. So happy customers is our next topic. Angel.
Thank you, Kelly. So if you have loyal customers, congratulations. You want to do everything that you can to keep them, okay? Because they are the backbone of your business. So you need to figure out how to keep them happy and how to keep them coming back. And many times it's just the simpleness of acknowledging that they are special, giving people a special experience. I'll tell you from my own perspective that there's a particular store that I like to go shop at. And it's so great because the manager of this store knows that this is where I buy most of my professional clothing for work. And so when they're getting ready to have a blowout sale, she'll call me a week in advance. Okay, so I get a personal phone call. Then when I show up, she helps me through the entire process. And I walk out of there and I feel like the most special person in the whole wide world. And it's the reason why I give a majority of my professional wardrobe budget to this particular store. And it's keep me coming back more and more again. And I do. I go out and I rave about this particular store. I tell my friends about this. And this is how it happens. And this is how you also build your niche. But you don't need just happy customers. Oh, pardon me. You want happy employees as well. Okay. Many folks think that customers are the only source for word of mouth, but employees talk about where they work all the time. And they talk about it to their friends and their family, and perfect strangers can hear them talk about where they work and what their experience is like when they're talking on the phone somewhere out in public. Okay. They are a great source of referrals for your business. Many times, they're the face of your business. They are who your customers interact with more often even than you. As the business begins to expand and grow, you can't be everywhere at all times and be to everyone what you need to be. So word of mouth starts with employees. How you treat your employees is how your brand is going to be perceived in the community.
So it's more important than ever now. We have the review sites. We've talked about Yelp and some of the others. Employees and customer service show up in more reviews than any other issue. And it's an incredible source and opportunity for business owners, but they have to really have kind of a customer service plan. They need to have a way of giving their employees the ability to make things right. Too many small businesses you walk into, if you have an issue, the employee will always say, well, the owner's not here. And they're not empowered to make the decision to make it right. So empowering your employees is something that needs to be done as well. And happy employees are more important now than they've ever been. So let's have happy employees, huh?
Happy employees are loyal employees. And loyal employees are really important because they actually get bought into the business. They get bought in also to the success of the business. And they will also be your eyes and ears with your competition. Okay. And so this is a relationship that is worth your investment to them. And I know today we're talking about a lot of planning. And for some of you as business owners, you may be thinking, my God, how am I going to sit down and have this much time to do all these different plans? But it comes down to some of the stuff you end up doing once and then you can build on it. But it's like what Kelly said, empowering these, putting together the plans and what the expectations are and where it is you're trying to go and what you're trying to accomplish empowers other people to actually support and work within your plan to help you make it happen. Okay? Because none of us can do this alone. Being an entrepreneur can be very lonely, but you don't end up being a successful entrepreneur by staying alone. Okay?
Okay, financial sustainability. And financial sustainability is obviously very important. And as is capital for a growing business. It's very difficult for businesses to grow without the proper capitalization. When businesses start or when they expand, they generally need more money for inventory. They'll need more money for employees. The money comes out a lot or goes out a lot faster than it comes in. So that permanent working capital base is crucial for not only startup companies, but for companies starting to grow. So the financial sustainability section is next.
So here we go, we're planning again, but you want to plan for your capital needs. So it's thinking about what you need now and thinking about based on how the business is going to grow, what you potentially are going to need in the future. Managing your cash flow is vital. If you don't have cash, if you run out of cash, you're going to be closing your business doors. Okay. So this becomes extremely important. Understanding your cash and how the cash flows in and out of your business and the timing of the way that the cash flows in and out of your business is different than having your accounting done in an accrual way. Okay. The accrual piece can show you you may have a ton of receivables, but if that money's not coming in within the time period that you actually have to pay out your accounts payable, then you've got a cash problem. Okay. And that's where your cash flow piece becomes very important in terms of staying on top of that and understanding the cycles that you have within the business. And every business has these cycles. What is your historical financial information? So those of you that are existing business owners, what was going on last year? What was going on the year before? What do the trends look like in your business? What are the cycles of work that happen in your business? Your credit score becomes very important because many of you are sole proprietors, which means that this business rides on your personal credit until that business gets going enough that it actually can obtain its own credit. But that takes a minimum of usually 3 years of being in business. So if you're going to have to get any type of capital or you're going to expand it all, it's going to be on your personal credit that's actually going to guarantee that for the business itself. You need to be able to have a working understanding of financials. This is something that many, many business owners like to avoid. Okay, we understand that. What we try to do at the Small Business Development Center is use the KISS method, and we keep it simple. All right, because understanding a few ways in which these numbers can actually communicate to you what is going on in the business, help you determine what these trends are. Where do you need to make a correction? So we're more than willing to work with you and help explain this to you so that it becomes part of your everyday working knowledge that you utilize in your business every single day. And what is the return on investment that you are getting?
Well, a couple of things jump out at me on this particular subject. And one of them is the cash flow. Ideally, a growing business is going to grow one or two ways. It's going to grow internally from cash that's generated from the business. So your cash flow is going to enable you to grow. Oftentimes, as I mentioned with the permanent working capital, most small businesses that grow need some form of external capital. And so they need generally some source of funds in order to make it happen. Traditionally, we've used traditional type lenders, some alternative lenders. We're seeing new ways of trying to get businesses to start and grow. A couple of those are crowdfunding. The center had 2 clients in the last month that ran successful crowdfunding techniques or campaigns. We've also had clients that are looking at getting capital from some angel investors, and not the angel sitting next to me, but angel investors. So it's vitally important for you to understand, are you going to be able to grow from internal cash or you need external cash? And the financial sustainability is going to deliver that for you. The other thing that jumps out at me is the historical financial info. And we're kind of in a dilemma here because we just got through April 15th and nobody wants to pay more than their fair share of taxes. But when you go to a bank is going to look at your historical financial information. They're going to look at your tax returns. If you're a sole proprietor, that's your Schedule C off of your 1040. So Form C off of 1040, they're going to look at that and they're going to base a lot of their decision, if not most of their decision, off of the results that you have. A lot of people have cash businesses. Sometimes that cash doesn't hit the books. That's where it can be a real detriment. So, and I know Angel said we hate to use the word plan, we'd rather use the word execute. But sometimes planning goes into consideration also when you're looking at some of your profit and loss and also your balance sheet items.
You're going to put a growth strategy in place in your existing business owner. Thank God you just did your taxes. Hopefully your income statement and your balance sheet are all up to date. Okay. This is the information that you need to determine financial feasibility with this growth strategy. So there are different types of feasibility and viability in terms of a growth plan. Okay, we've been talking about marketing, we've been talking about capturing parts of the market share, but these are the pieces that you need to be able to evaluate if you are an existing business owner. You do not want to do this in a vacuum. Cash flow projection is based on this growth strategy, and you're going to determine a break-even analysis because the bottom line is that it's going to cost you money to grow. Okay, and so what is either the combination of the amount of sales that you have to have, meaning the amount of revenue that you've got to bring in based on what the expense that it's going to cost you, at what point does that come to net zero? Because once that gets back to net zero, then the next dollar you make becomes the profit. But how long is it going to take you to get there? Okay, so we really need to help you take a look at this because you do not want to attempt to implement a growth strategy that tanks the other end of your business because you didn't realize it was going to take a little bit longer than what you anticipated and you don't have the resources to continue to fund it. All right, so that's your main problem that you're trying to avoid. Business is all about making money. So what are the indicators for that? Your net profit margin should be increasing. Like Kelly said, you got to have cash. That cash should be flowing in that business, and you know that you've got a return on your investment as well. So what is your net profit? It's what's left over after you deduct all expenses from the revenue that your business generates. Net profit is your total income minus your total expenses, and this is your true bottom line. Cash flow. Negative cash flow means that you got it going out faster than it's coming in. That's not what we want to have happening. Although that is a reality of business, It happens to every single business, and it happens more than once. A lot of times you're actually going to plan that that is occurring because it's part of a cycle within the business. The cash flow gap, this is what I'm talking about. This is real for most businesses, which means you've got periods of time that you have more cash going out than you have coming in. What are you going to do about that? What is your backup strategy? How are you going to get that to change? You need to project and manage your cash flow to avoid these critical situations due to lack of cash, meaning you can't make payroll, meaning you got to close your doors. None of that is a good outcome. This is a major responsibility of every single business owner, okay? I love the definition of entrepreneurs. You get to take credit for all of it. Everything great that your business does, you get to take accountability and responsibility for it. And you also get to take the accountability and responsibility for the stuff that doesn't go so great. So let's stay on top of this, folks. Cash flow funds the business growth. Okay. And how do you grow? You're going to either increase your sales revenue by increasing your price or volume. That's one strategy. You work to keep your variable costs down. Okay. So these are the costs that change as conditions in the business change. This is not your fixed expenses. Your fixed expenses are those expenses that you would pay whether you had a sale or not within that month. But you don't have control over that. You've got control over the variable. You want to achieve greater productivity from the resources which are financed through your overhead. And your goal for growth is that you want your cash flow to increase simultaneously while your net profit is increasing as well. Both of those increase at the same time, and you are growing financially.
And we realize that that's a lot of financial information and it is very detailed. That's why we have consultants that can work with you and your business for no fee at the SBDC. So keep that in mind also if you're getting a little inundated by all the financial terms and all the financial information. So moving on.
So we're going to wrap a little bit here on the strategies to grow and move into the final segment of our webinar today. You want to leverage your resources, time, people, partnerships, and money. Seek out what you need. So realize what you don't have and what you need and seek that out from people, from partnerships. Adapt. As conditions change, you need to evolve and you need to adapt. That's what's going to make you survive. Evaluate your progress. Compare your performance to your goals at least monthly. And this is where the planning piece comes in. This is where these different plans become working documents for you, okay? So you can actually see what's working and you can make adjustments as these conditions change. Growth is life. You cannot afford to sit idle in this ever-changing business world. Change is the only constant, and it's the major cliche that everybody says because it's true. And if you don't grow and gain market share, your competitor's going to go right ahead and do it for you.
Yes, they will. Well, one of the things at the SBDC that we have coming up later this year that is going to help
All this planning.
with some planning and also some executing of that plan
Very true.
and the lean business model and a lot of other aspects is we're going to be doing a class called FastTrac in September. And FastTrac is basically from the Kauffman Foundation, which is the largest and most prestigious think tank for entrepreneurship that's around. They developed a criteria and actually curriculum that has been that's served, I believe, how many
Over 300,000 persons worldwide.
have used it, and it's not cheap. It's great though, and it's a class we're going to start in September. We hope to bring it out to the outlying areas in some way or another.
And it's never been offered in Kern County ever. This particular class has never been offered here. So this is why we're giving everybody the heads up so far ahead, because we really want to be able to serve our community effectively with this particular curriculum.
And the great thing about it is we are working on getting scholarships where a lot of the fee is generally around $500, $495. We're looking at getting scholarships, and also some people that have employees may be able to attend for free through the employment training panel. You can contact our center at the information we give you in a little bit. But typically what you'd get into is a 10-week class and 3 hours each night for a week. The facilitation guest speaker would come in. We'd have a networking break, small group activity, peer coaching with consultants. And also your goal is to develop that business plan or the business model generation canvas that we talked to earlier.
Excellent. So what does FastTrac emphasize? It emphasizes thinking like a customer. So you've got to know them. Marketing is crucial in determining the right type of marketing. Outside money is hard to come by. Cash and profit are two different things. Spending or not spending unnecessary money is silly. So it's really taking a look at where do you start to make financial investments in regards to the business. And sometimes a no-go decision is a successful outcome. Stay and learn the process for our next idea. Okay, here's what this means. One of the things that you're going to do in Kauffman also is to determine the feasibility and or viability of your business idea. So whether this is for a startup or this is a growth strategy, you are an existing business owner that's attempting to implement a new growth strategy in your business. Well, as we get down the pike, you might figure out that the idea that you have is not as feasible or viable as you thought. And the indicators for a feasible or viable business actually can be individual to the business owner. It depends on how financially successful you want this business to be, okay? And this becomes something that becomes individualized based on what your goals are. And you'll be able to explore this in this particular class, not only with yourself being in the class, but with your peers, with other business owners as well. Sometimes you determine and you decide that it's not as feasible as you thought you would be, so you're going to make a different decision. We consider that to be a positive outcome. Why? Because you haven't put a second house mortgage on your house. You haven't gotten rid of all your cash and invested in something that you didn't find out if it was actually had a chance of working in the first place. One of the other things I wanted to discuss in terms of the FastTrac curriculum is that this is considered more facilitation versus teaching. So that means that we all come together in this room and we have a collective experience together. So it's not so much the lecturing at folks, it's all of us working together. Here would be the certificate of completion that you would receive by actually completing the course. I'm going to look forward to signing a bunch of those off, Kelly.
Yes, you will. And if you want more information, please give us a call, contact us, go to our website, or send us an email, whatever way works best for you. And we still have a few minutes left for some questions. If you have some questions on some of the specific items that we've covered, we've got a couple of minutes left, so feel free to type it in. If not, our next webinar will be coming up the third Wednesday in June. We have a lot coming up. We have, I don't have the schedule in front of me. What happened there? We do have, it's going to be June 18th. Later this year, we're going to have another one on crowdfunding, and we do have one on tax tips coming up. I can't remember what the one is in June, though, so stay tuned. We'll get it out to you. I don't see any other questions, so I guess what we'll do is we'll thank you for attending. Pleasure being able to do these webinars. Again, we'll be back on June 18th with another topic. Grab your sandwich, get there. For Angel Cottrell, and thank you, Angel, for another fantastic job.
Please fill out our survey at the end. When we close out the webinar, you should be sent a survey immediately. Please fill that out. It helps us improve our service.
I'm Kelly Beard, and have a good day. Goodbye now.